The rain on Keeler Prime did not fall like water but like threads of cold silver light, drifting slowly from a sky bruised purple by distant warship engines. The bulky humans stood at the edge of the alien city with shoulders hunched and breath heavy, armor cracked and scorched from a battle that had never been his to fight. Every step sent a dull ache through muscle and bone, yet he kept moving because stopping meant capture, and capture under alien law meant disappearance. He had crossed 3 districts on foot, avoiding patrol drones and silent watchers hidden behind curved windows. His size made him impossible to miss among the slender alien forms that moved like shadows. Whispers followed him: human, soldier, outsider, weapon. He could feel their fear like static in the air. Not hatred but something colder, the kind born from stories told during wartime. The door he stopped in front of was too small for him, smooth and pale like carved bone. Light pulsed softly along its frame. He raised a massive hand and hesitated. He had kicked down blast doors and charged enemy lines without pause. Yet this moment made his chest tighten in a way battle never had. He was unarmed now, no rifle, no authority, only a man asking for shelter. Inside the dwelling, the alien woman felt the knock through the floor before she heard it. A low vibration that set the thin sensory ridges along her neck trembling. She froze with a ration cube halfway to her mouth. Outsiders did not knock here. Soldiers certainly did not. Her mind raced through the laws drilled into her since childhood. Harboring a human was treason. Aiding a soldier was punishable by memory erasure or worse. Another knock came, softer this time. Not a demand but a plea. Her heart beat faster, curiosity fought fear. She moved toward the door and pressed her palm to the surface. The exterior feed bloomed into view and she saw him. He filled the frame, towering, scarred, eyes sunken with exhaustion yet painfully gentle. His posture was wrong for a conqueror, shoulders lowered, head bowed to fit beneath the door frame. Blood darkened the side of his neck where alien shrapnel had grazed him. The sight sent a strange pull through her chest, an echo of something ancient and forbidden. She opened the door only a handspan, enough to see the full weight of him leaning against the wall as if the city itself were the only thing keeping him upright. When their eyes met, time seemed to stretch, 2 species bound by war staring into each other in silence. His voice came out rough but controlled. "I just need a place to sit for a moment," he said, then quickly added, "I will leave before patrol cycle resets." Her instincts screamed at her to close the door, to pretend she had seen nothing. Yet her gaze lingered on his hands, massive and trembling despite his effort to keep them still. She sensed no aggression, only restraint, a discipline forged in battle and held together by will alone. "It will be a tight squeeze," she heard herself say, the words surprising even her. Her hand moved before her mind could stop it, and the door slid open wider, light spilling over his battered armor. He ducked instinctively, careful not to scrape the ceiling, each movement slow and deliberate as though afraid to break something fragile or someone. When he stepped inside, the small living space seemed to shrink around him. His presence changed the air, warmer somehow, heavier with unspoken stories. She closed the door and locked it. The sound echoed like a verdict. Both of them knew what that meant. Outside, the city hummed with laws and patrols and distant warships waiting for an excuse to descend. Inside stood an alien woman and a human soldier sharing borrowed silence. "You should not have done that," he said quietly, not as an accusation but a warning. His eyes searched her face as if memorizing it, preparing for the moment he would have to protect her from the consequences. She met his gaze, chin lifted though fear coiled in her chest. "I know the law," she replied. "My people taught it to me before they taught me how to dream." Something flickered in his expression then, surprise mixed with respect. He lowered himself carefully to the floor, knees protesting as he sat. The room felt impossibly small now, yet neither of them moved away. For a moment there was only the sound of distant engines and the faint hum of her home. Then his breath hitched, just slightly, and she realized how close he was to collapse, not from weakness but from carrying too much for too long. She brought him a cloth and water without thinking. Her hands shook as she knelt beside him. When their fingers brushed, a pulse of warmth passed between them, startling and electric. He stiffened but did not pull away. Instead he whispered thank you as though it meant more than survival. Neither of them knew it yet, but in that quiet, cramped room, beneath the shadow of alien law and human war, destiny had already shifted, a rescue had already begun, and the fate of worlds had tilted on the simple choice to open a door. The room seemed smaller once the door was sealed, as if the walls themselves were aware of the danger now living inside them. The alien woman sat back on her heels while the human soldier leaned against the curved wall, his sighs forcing an awkward stillness. Every breath he took was measured, controlled, like a man trained to make no sound even when pain begged him to. She watched him in silence, her eyes tracing the damage etched into his armor. Scorched plating, melted seams, symbols scratched away by enemy blades. Each mark told a story she had only heard whispered in fear. Human warships do not retreat. Human soldiers do not surrender. Yet here he was, broken and quiet, asking for nothing more than a moment of safety. "You are hurt," she said softly, not a question but an observation. Her voice carried a gentle musical tone common to her kind, yet beneath it trembled something raw, curiosity mixed with dread. He nodded once, slow, careful, as if even that small movement cost him something. "It will pass," he replied, "humans heal." It was said without pride, only fact, though his clenched jaw betrayed the strain. She hesitated, then reached for the medical unit mounted along the wall. It was designed for her species, slender limbs, fragile skin. Laws forbade its use on humans. Even possessing a human biological scan was a felony. Her hand paused midair, the weight of generations pressing down on her shoulders. "If they scan my unit," she murmured, "they will know." He looked at her sharply then, not with fear for himself but concern for her. "Do not risk yourself," soldier instinct overriding exhaustion. "I chose this, you did not." Her gaze hardened, a quiet defiance rising. "I chose when I opened the door," she replied, and pressed the activation panel anyway. Soft light washed over him as the unit struggled to interpret his massive form. Symbols flickered erratically. Alarms tried to sound and were silenced by her swift adjustments. She knelt closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. It was different from her people, denser, stronger, alive in a way that unsettled her. When the scanner passed over his chest, he sucked in a breath, muscles tensing, memories flashed behind his eyes. Battlefields torn by plasma fire, comrades falling, commands shouted through static. The last stand aboard a burning warship that had not been his but became his battlefield nonetheless. "You were in the orbital clash," she whispered, recognition dawning. Every child on Keeler Prime had seen the footage, human warships tearing through the sky like blades of fire, alien fleets scattering under impossible tactics. "Yes," he said quietly. Then after a pause, "I was separated during evacuation." The word evacuation tasted bitter. Humans did not evacuate. They held lines until nothing remained. His survival felt like betrayal. The unit finished its scan and projected a treatment plan meant for beings half his mass. She adapted it instinctively, guided by empathy rather than training. When her fingers brushed his skin again, he did not flinch. Instead, his shoulders sagged just slightly, trust settling where tension had lived. Outside, a patrol drone hummed past, its shadow sliding across the sealed door. Both of them froze. Her breath caught in her throat while his hand moved subtly toward a weapon that was no longer there. The drone lingered, scanning. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure it would give them away. After an endless moment, the hum faded, leaving behind silence heavy enough to crush them. He exhaled slowly, eyes closing for just a second. "You should turn me in," he said, voice low, "before this becomes worse." She laughed softly then, a sound edged with disbelief and fear. "Worse than memory erasure, worse than exile, worse than knowing I let someone die on my doorstep." She met his gaze again, luminous eyes reflecting the faint glow of the medical unit. "I could not live with that fate." Something shifted between them, unspoken yet undeniable. A bridge forming where none should exist. He saw not an alien defined by law but a woman shaped by courage. She saw not a monster of war but a man burdened by duty. He adjusted his massive frame, careful not to invade her space. "Thank you," he said again. This time the words carried weight, promise, something ancient and human. She finished the treatment and sat back, her hands lingering in the air as if reluctant to let go. "You will stay until dawn cycle," she decided. "Patrols thin then. I know routes through the lower districts." "That will endanger you further," he replied. She smiled sadly. "Destiny rarely asks permission, human," she said, using the word not as an insult but a name. Beyond the walls of the small dwelling, warships shifted in orbit and laws waited to be enforced. But inside, two enemies of fate shared warmth and breath. unaware that the galaxy had already noticed the moment a door opened and that rescue, once begun, rarely remained small. Night cycle deepened across Keeler Prime, the silver rain thinning into drifting embers of light that clung to the windows like watchful eyes. Inside the dwelling the air grew warmer, heavier, as if the presence of two forbidden lives had altered the balance of the room itself. The human soldier sat unmoving, broad shoulders nearly brushing both walls, while the alien woman stood near the light panel, fingers twisting together in a gesture she had not realized she shared with her kind when afraid. Her name, she finally said, breaking the long silence, was soft and careful, as though offering it was another law she was choosing to bend. I am Elith. He inclined his head slightly, a respectful bow learned across 100 worlds. I am Marcus, human infantry. The title came out automatically, then faded. He added more quietly, or what remains of it. Elith studied him, the way his jaw tightened whenever engines passed overhead, the way his gaze tracked invisible threats. Humans were spoken of as relentless beasts, yet everything about him spoke of control, of violence leashed by conscience. It unsettled her more than any story of cruelty. You carry echoes, she murmured. Her people were sensitive to emotional resonance. Not quite telepathy, but something deeper, an awareness of past and possibility. There is a storm around you, but also a still center. Marcus looked away, uncomfortable. If you can feel what I carry, then you should understand why I cannot stay long. Wherever I go, war follows. Elith stepped closer despite herself, curiosity overriding fear. Or perhaps war follows you because you stand where others fall, she said. Her voice trembled as though touching a truth she barely understood. Before he could reply, the city alarms pulsed once, twice, then faded into a low warning hum. Both of them stiffened. Elith rushed to the window and activated the privacy veil. Symbols flickered across the glass, Imperial Patrol frequencies. She whispered, "They are increasing sweeps." Someone reported a human sighting. Marcus rose slowly, the room seeming to shrink even further. His massive frame coiled with readiness. "I will leave now," he said. Even wounded, he radiated lethal calm. "They will search door to door." "No," Elith said quickly, fear sharpening her thoughts. "The lower districts are sealed during night cycle. They will expect flight, not concealment." She moved to a recessed panel near the sleeping alcove and pressed a hidden sequence. The floor shimmered, then parted silently to reveal a narrow maintenance hollow. Darkness breathed up from it, ancient and forgotten. Marcus stared, surprise flickering across his face. "A shelter," he murmured. "Older than the city," Elith replied, her tone shifting, layered, reverent. "Before law, before councils, our ancestors hid from predators both above and below." Her eyes glowed faintly as she spoke. "There are many things the law does not remember." The alarms pulsed again, closer now. Boots echoed faintly through the walls as patrol units moved through adjacent dwellings. Marcus clenched his fists, every instinct screaming to stand between her and danger. Yet he understood, fighting here would doom her. He lowered himself into the hollow, careful, silent despite his size. The space was impossibly tight, stone brushing his shoulders. When Elith followed and sealed the floor above them, darkness wrapped around them like a living thing. They crouched there, breath mingling, the closeness stripped away distance and pretense. He could feel her trembling beside him, hear her heart racing. Instinct urged him to reach out, to shield, but he forced himself still. Even the slightest movement could give them away. Voices filtered through the stone, alien and sharp, patrol officers reciting codes, the scrape of scanners against walls. One of them paused directly above the hollow. Elith pressed her palm to the stone, whispering something Marcus could not understand, a soft melodic chant that vibrated through the space. The stone responded. Marcus felt it, a subtle shift. The hollow seemed to fold in on itself, their presence blurring, like standing in the shadow of something vast, ancient and awake. His breath caught. "What is this place?" he whispered. Elith's eyes shone in the darkness. "Our world remembers us," she replied. Fear and awe mingled in her voice. Keeler Prime is not just stone and law, it is alive. The scanner swept overhead, hesitated, then moved on. The patrol voices faded, leaving behind a silence so profound it felt sacred. Marcus let out a slow breath, realizing he had been holding it for far too long. "You saved me again," he said. The words carried a weight deeper than gratitude. Elith met his gaze in the dim light, Something changed in her expression. A dawning realization. No, she whispered. I think this place chose you. Above them, warships shifted in orbit. Laws tightened their grip, and fate leaned closer. Drawn by the quiet defiance of two beings hiding in the bones of a living world. Unaware that the mystery beneath their feet would soon demand a price neither of them was prepared to pay. Time passed strangely beneath the city, measured not by cycles or alarms but by the slow rhythm of the living stone around them. Marcus felt it thrumming against his back and shoulders. A deep pulse like the heartbeat of a giant creature asleep yet aware. Every instinct he possessed told him this place was older than war, older than the laws that hunted him. Elith remained still beside him, eyes half closed, fingers resting against the stone as if listening. Her breathing gradually steadied, fear giving way to something quieter and far more dangerous, understanding. You feel it too, she said softly, not a question. Marcus nodded, though the darkness hid the motion. I have stood inside warships that could think, cities that moved like beasts, but this is different, this feels like being judged. Her lips curved faintly, a sad, almost knowing smile. Keeler Prime judges slowly. She replied, but it never forgets. The stone beneath Marcus's hand suddenly warmed. Light seeped through fine cracks like veins igniting beneath skin. Elitha's breath caught. This should not be happening. She whispered, it only responds to the bloodbound. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, the hollow expanded, stone flowing like liquid, reshaping itself around them. The ceiling rose, walls curved outward, and they found themselves standing within a vast hidden chamber. Ancient symbols etched into every surface, glowing softly as if awakened from a long slumber. Marcus straightened instinctively, while replacing caution. His size no longer felt intrusive here. The chamber seemed built to hold something larger than any one species. What is this place? He asked, his voice reverberating gently. Elith stepped forward, her posture changing, shoulders straightening, fear falling away like a discarded skin. This is the Heart Vault, she said, voice resonant. It was sealed before the first council ever wrote a law. Only those bound to the world may enter. She turned to him then, and in the glow of the chamber her features shifted subtly. Markings along her temples brightened, posture carrying an authority she had carefully hidden. Marcus's instincts screamed, not danger, revelation. You are not just a citizen, he said slowly. Elith met his gaze without flinching. I am the last living princess of Keeler Prime, heir to the bloodbound throne. My name erased by my own council to prevent a prophecy they feared. The word struck harder than any blow Marcus had taken in battle. Princess, heir, prophecy. Every law that hunted him suddenly snapped into focus. They were not just hunting a human soldier, they were hunting her. They executed my family in silence. She continued, pain rippling beneath her calm. Declared the bloodbound line extinct, rewrote history. I survived because the world hid me, because Keeler Prime itself rejected their lie. The chamber responded to her words, light intensifying, symbols flaring brighter. Marcus felt the stone pressed gently against him. Testing, measuring, Elitha's eyes widened as she looked at him. It is responding to you, she whispered, disbelief threading her voice. That is impossible. Marcus clenched his fists, jaw tight. I do not belong to your world. I am a weapon shaped by war, not destiny. The chamber pulsed again. Stronger, images flooded the air around them. Visions formed in light and memory, humans standing beside ancient alien forms. Not as conquerors but as shields, warships breaking themselves against impossible odds so worlds could live. Sacrifice woven into human history like a defining thread. Elith staggered, clutching her chest. The world chose humans long ago. She breathed, not as rulers, but as guardians. Marcus saw it then, the truth hidden beneath fear and propaganda, why human warships terrified the galaxy, why alien law sought to isolate them. Humans were catalysts, beings whose presence awakened dormant forces, changed outcomes, broke stagnant fate. And now, the Heart Vault had chosen him. Alarms screamed above them, real this time. Not patrol sweeps but planetary alerts. The council had felt the awakening. Marcus knew it instantly. Warship engines thundered through the stone, descending fast. Elith straightened fully now. Princess revealed, destiny burning behind her eyes. They will come for us both, she said, voice steady, and they will not negotiate. Marcus stepped beside her, massive frame aligning instinctively with hers. Then they will learn, he said quietly, what humans do when destiny threatens those under our protection. The chamber responded one final time, a deep resonant pulse that echoed across the planet. Far above, council chambers shook, warships faltered, and ancient systems long thought dead flickered back to life. In that hidden place beneath living stone, an alien princess reclaimed her name. A human soldier found a fate greater than war, and the galaxy took its first unsteady breath before a battle that would decide not just who ruled, but who deserved to be protected. The planet screamed, not in sound alone but in gravity and light and memory. Keeler Prime shuddered as ancient systems woke from centuries of enforced silence. Orbital lanes twisted, energy currents surged through the crust, and far above the atmosphere warships faltered as if struck by an unseen hand. Human vessels detected the anomaly first, alarms cascading across bridges as impossible readings flooded their sensors. Marcus felt it through the stone, a pressure that bent his breath and pulled at something deep inside his bones. The heart vault pulsed brighter, projecting its signal far beyond the planet, into the dark lanes of space where empires listened. They are broadcasting us, Elith said, her voice steady but tight. The vault is declaring the bloodbound alive. Marcus turned sharply. You mean to the council? To everyone, she replied, to allies who forgot us, to enemies who erased us, to humans who were never meant to hear this call. As if summoned by her words, human warships altered course across 3 sectors, captains reading the same ancient markers buried deep in restricted archives. Signals older than treaties, older than the war itself. A call reserved for extinction-level events, Guardian resonance detected. On the Council flagship above Keeler Prime, panic erupted. The bloodbound is a myth, an elder shouted, slamming claws against crystalline railings. We burned that line from history. A younger counselor stared at the data, eyes wide with terror. No, you buried it, and now it is awake. Orders rang out, orbital cannons charged, planetary suppression protocols armed. They would scorch their own world before allowing prophecy to stand. Law had become survival, and survival demanded annihilation. The first strike fell like a falling sun. Energy lanced down through the atmosphere, tearing into the upper crust. Cities screamed as power grids failed. Marcus staggered as the vault absorbed the blow. The chamber dimmed, then flared brighter in defiance, stone cracking but not breaking. Elith cried out, collapsing to one knee, blood shimmering faintly along her temple. The world is tied to me, she gasped. If they kill it, they kill everything. Marcus moved without thought, dropping beside her, shielding her with his body as another impact shook the chamber. Then we end this now, he said, voice low and absolute. He placed his hand against the core of the vault. The reaction was immediate. Pain exploded through him, not physical but emotional. A flood of lives and sacrifices and final stands. Human soldiers dying on alien soil so strangers could live. Fleets choosing destruction over retreat. Species saved without ever knowing who paid the price. Marcus roared silently as the weight threatened to crush him. Hold, Elith whispered, gripping his arm with surprising strength. Humans are not chosen to rule. They are chosen to endure. Above them, the sky fractured. Human warships emerged from fold space in impossible numbers, engines burning blue and gold, insignias long retired blazing once more. The arrival shook the galactic net. Allies froze, enemies panicked, historians wept. A human admiral's voice cut across all frequencies, clear and unyielding. This world is under Guardian protection. Stand down immediately. The council responded with fear and fury, firing upon their own orbit, energy weapons clashing with human shields. Space ignited into battle, debris raining like fire across the atmosphere. Marcus felt every hit, every loss, the vault feeding him awareness he never asked for. He saw a human cruiser break apart to shield a civilian habitat, saw pilots laugh as they rammed incoming fire away from the planet, humanity doing what it had always done, standing where no one else could. Elith rose beside him despite the pain, eyes blazing with blood-bound light. The council believes law is stronger than life, she said, then let them face judgment. She pressed her palm to the vault and spoke words older than her species. The chamber answered with a pulse that rippled outward. Alien fleets hesitated as control systems failed, ancient safeguards reasserting themselves, worlds long silenced remembering their true guardians. Across the galaxy, dormant defenses awakened, not weapons of conquest but shields and sanctuaries. Law rewritten at a fundamental level. The Council flagship tried to flee. It did not escape. Human interceptors cut it off, disabling without hesitation, transmitting the truth across every channel, the blood-bound lives, the Guardian Compact stands, and extinction will not be legislated. As the battle raged above, Marcus knelt beside Elith, exhaustion finally breaking through. The cost of endurance written across his face. She touched his cheek gently. "You were never meant to be a soldier forever," she said softly. "Destiny does not end with survival." He looked at her, battered and alive. A princess reclaimed by a world that refused to die. "Then we finish this together," he replied. Far beyond Keeler Prime, empires recalculated their futures, laws trembled and fate shifted course. The rescue of one life had become the salvation of many, and the galaxy understood at last that when humans choose to protect, the consequences echo forever. The battle above began to slow, not because the danger had passed, but because the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Human warships formed a widening shield around Keeler Prime, engines burning steady, scarred hulls drifting like sentinels that refused to fall. Debris glowed as it burned away in the upper atmosphere, each fragment a reminder of how close everything had come to ending. Within the heart vault, Marcus sank back against the living stone, his strength finally giving way. The connection to the vault still thrummed through him, quieter now but deeper, like an ocean beneath ice. Every breath felt heavier than the last, not from wounds alone but from the weight of what he had carried. Elith knelt beside him, the glow along her markings dimming to a soft, steady light. She pressed her forehead briefly against his shoulder, a gesture of her people reserved for those who had shared fate. "You should not still be alive," she whispered, half in awe, half in fear. He managed a faint smile. "Humans are stubborn," he said. Then his voice softened, "But even we have limits." Her hands trembled as she examined the injuries the vault had stabilized but not healed. The cost of being a conduit was etched into him now. Deep lines of exhaustion, scars that pulsed faintly with alien light. "The world marked you," she said, guilt threading her words. It asked too much. Marcus caught her wrist gently, his grip still strong despite everything. "It asked what I could give," he replied, "and for the first time since the war began, I chose where that strength went." The vault stirred again, not violently but insistently, projecting visions into the chamber, council worlds in chaos, citizens watching broadcasts of truth long buried, alien children seeing humans not as monsters but as shields burning in space, laws fracturing as reality pressed through cracks carved by fear. Elith gasped softly, "Seeing it all, the galaxy is changing," she said. "The bloodbound was meant to guide that change, not command it." She turned to Marcus then, eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. "Without you, they would have erased us again. History would have folded back into silence." He looked at her, truly looked, not as a princess or a symbol but as the woman who had opened a door and chosen compassion over survival, and he felt something inside him settle. "Then it was never just my fight," he said quietly. The ground trembled once more, different this time, deliberate. The vault's core opened, revealing a column of light that rose toward the ceiling. Within it shapes formed, ancient constructs awakening, guardians left dormant when the bloodbound fell. Elith stood slowly, recognition and sorrow crossing her face. "These were meant to answer only the bloodbound," she said, voice thick, "but they will drain what remains of me." Marcus pushed himself upright with effort. "Then they answer together," he said, stepping into the light beside her. The constructs hesitated, systems flickering, then stabilized, human and alien resonance interweaving. The vault accepted the pairing, a bond never before recorded. Above them, a final council faction broke through the human defensive line, a last desperate strike aimed directly at the planet's core. Marcus felt it instantly, a spear of annihilation forming. "They will try to end everything in one blow," he said, jaw set. Elitha's voice shook as she replied, "If they fire, the world will shatter, and the Guardians will die with it." Marcus took her hands, massive fingers enclosing hers with surprising gentleness. "Then we stop it here," he said, "whatever it costs." She searched his face, fear and resolve colliding. "This could kill you." He nodded once, calm, honest, I know. Something broke then, not the world, but the distance between them. Elith leaned forward and pressed her brow to his chest, her voice barely a whisper. I am afraid to lose you. His breath hitched, the admission striking deeper than any wound. He lowered his head to rest against hers. I was afraid long before I met you. He said softly, now at least my fear has meaning. The vault surged as they stood together, power rising, constructs aligning. Human warships above felt it and tightened their formation. Captains understanding without orders. Every gun turning toward the incoming threat. Across the galaxy, sensors flared. Allies leaned forward. Enemies hesitated. And fate drew tight like a bowstring. In the heart vault, beneath a living world, a human soldier and an alien princess prepared to make a final stand. Not for conquest or law, but for the right of worlds to choose mercy. And as the weapon in the sky began to fire, the light around them burned brighter than any warship had ever dared to shine. The moment stretched, thin as a blade, as the council weapon in orbit finished charging, space around it bending under the strain. Within the heart vault the light rose to a blinding brilliance, not harsh but warm, like the dawn of a world that had refused to die. Marcus felt everything slow, the pain, the fear, even the thunder of battle above. He stood with Elith at the center of the living light, her hands still in his, smaller yet unyielding. The bond between them no longer fragile but forged, human endurance braided with blood-bound will. Do not let go, she whispered, her voice steady despite the tears brightening her eyes. I am here, he replied, and for the first time since he had become a soldier. The words were not a promise made in desperation but a truth. The weapon fired. A spear of annihilation tore downward, brighter than suns, faster than thought. Every fleet in orbit braced. Human captains shouted commands they knew would not matter. Alien worlds watched in horror, convinced they were witnessing the end of a living planet. The heart vault answered. Light surged upward from the planet's core, not as a weapon but as a shield shaped by intention. The Guardians awakened fully, ancient constructs aligning around the beam, human and alien resonance locking together. The spear struck and shattered, dispersing into harmless radiance that washed across the atmosphere like falling stars. Silence followed. Then, across every channel, across every world, a single truth echoed. The blood-bound throne stands, the Guardian compact endures. In orbit, the remaining Council warships powered down, systems overridden by safeguards older than their authority. Crews stared at their consoles in stunned disbelief. Law had failed them. History had turned. Within the vault, the light slowly dimmed, leaving Marcus on one knee, breath ragged, strength finally spent. Elith caught him before he fell, holding him against her as the chamber settled into a peaceful glow. You did it, she whispered, voice breaking, the world lives. He smiled faintly, eyes heavy, then so do we, at least for now. The Guardians withdrew, returning to dormancy, their purpose fulfilled. The vault sealed gently behind them, no longer hidden but no longer demanding sacrifice. Above, human warships began rescue operations, aiding damaged alien vessels without hesitation. A sight that would be replayed for generations. Hours later, sunlight broke through the city clouds for the first time in memory. Citizens emerged cautiously, watching humans walk openly among them, not as invaders but as protectors. Whispers changed tone. Fear softened into awe. Elith stood before the council chambers as princess once more, no longer erased, her claim undeniable, the truth broadcast beyond suppression. She did not demand punishment, only dissolution of a council that had ruled through fear, law rewritten not by conquest but by consent. When she returned to the quiet overlook above the city, Marcus waited, seated carefully on a reinforced bench, armor removed, scars visible, human and unashamed. They stood facing the horizon together, the city breathing beneath them. The galaxy will call you many things now, she said softly, guardian, catalyst, legend. He shook his head slowly. I am tired of being a symbol. She turned to him, eyes gentle. Then be a man, she said. The door you knocked on is still open. He looked at her then, truly seeing not the princess or the prophecy, but the woman who had chosen compassion in a moment that reshaped fate. His voice was quiet, reverent. I would like that. Far beyond Keeler Prime, treaties were rewritten, borders softened, the myth of human monsters replaced by stories of human sacrifice, of warships that burned so others could live, of a soldier who had nowhere to stay and found a home that changed the stars. And in a small place overlooking a living world, destiny finally rested, not in law or battle or prophecy, but in two lives intertwined, proof that sometimes the greatest rescue is not of a planet or a people, but of hope itself.